The crystalline spires of the Mora pierced the violet sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 suns. Daniel wiped grease from his hands onto his worn jumpsuit and squinted at the crowd gathering in the plaza below. Even from his perch atop the orbital dock's maintenance platform, he could see the warriors assembling, Kravan mercenaries with their exoskeletons, sentinel knights in gleaming armor, even a few void stalkers whose reputation alone made hardened soldiers nervous. They were all here for Princess Orla. Daniel had seen her once 3 rotations ago when her diplomatic vessel had docked for repairs. She wasn't what he'd expected. The Lomorians were beings of pure energy, their consciousness housed in intricate containment suits that resembled stained glass sculptures. Orla's suit had been damaged during what the news feeds called a minor accident, but Daniel knew better. He'd examined the scorch patterns, the deliberate overload signatures. Someone had tried to kill her. "Mechanic," the voice crackled through his comm implant, making him flinch. "You're needed in Bay 7, immediately." Daniel descended the platform, his mag boots keeping him anchored as the artificial gravity flickered, another system failing in this aging station. Base 7 was where they'd taken Orla after the second assassination attempt, when her containment suit had begun to fail. The best warriors in the sector had volunteered to rescue her from the quantum-locked chamber, where she'd sealed herself to prevent her essence from dissipating into the void. The problem was simple in theory: break the quantum lock, extract the princess, transfer her to a new containment unit. In practice, it was impossible. The lock responded to force with exponentially increasing resistance. Brute strength only made it stronger. 6 warriors had already failed. 3 were in medical bays recovering from feedback burns. 2 had simply given up. 1 had vanished entirely. Quantum locks were unpredictable that way. Daniel entered Bay 7 and immediately noticed the tension. Commander Thex, a Kravan whose cybernetic enhancements probably cost more than Daniel's entire station, stood with arms crossed. Beside him, Knight Captain Voss radiated disapproval, her armor's defensive fields humming aggressively. "The mechanic," Voss's translator made her sound dismissive. "We need specialists, not grease-stained laborers." "The specialists failed," Thex growled. "Maybe we need someone who thinks differently." Daniel approached the chamber. It was a perfect sphere of black glass, 3 meters in diameter, hovering in a stasis field. Inside, barely visible, was the faint shimmer of Orla's energy signature. According to the readouts, she had maybe 4 hours before her consciousness fragmented beyond recovery. "What have you tried?" Daniel asked. Voss stepped forward. Graviton pulse breakers, quantum disruptors, phase-shifted cutting beams, harmonic resonance. "Force," Daniel interrupted. "You've tried different kinds of force." "What else is there?" Thex demanded. Daniel circled the sphere slowly, pulling out his diagnostic scanner, a battered device he'd built himself from salvaged parts. The readings made him frown. "The lock isn't designed to keep people out. It's designed to keep her in. She created it." "We know that," Voss snapped. "She sealed herself to prevent essence dispersal. Now she's trapped." "No," Daniel knelt beside the sphere, pressing his palm against its surface. It was warm, pulsing with rhythmic energy. "She's not trapped. She's afraid to come out." The warriors exchanged glances. Thex's translator let out what might have been a laugh. "You're saying the princess, heir to the Lomorian consciousness, is afraid?" Daniel didn't answer. He was remembering that day 3 rotations ago, watching Orla examine her damaged suit in his workshop. She'd been silent for a long time, and then her voice had resonated through his implant, not cold and formal like the translators made the Lomorian sound, but warm, uncertain. "Do you ever wonder if the things protecting you are also limiting you?" He'd thought she was talking about the suit. Now he understood she'd meant something deeper. Daniel stood and turned to Commander Thex. "I need everyone to leave the bay." "Absolutely not," Voss said. Protocol requires. Protocol is why she won't come out. Daniel met her eyes. She's been attacked twice by people who passed every security check, who knew exactly when and where she'd be vulnerable. Every protector is now a potential threat. Thex studied Daniel for a long moment, then nodded. Clear the bay. Give him 1 hour. The warriors filed out, their disapproval palpable. When the door sealed, Daniel was alone with the sphere and the dying princess inside. He sat cross-legged on the floor, his back against the cold metal wall. Orla, I'm Daniel, the mechanic. I worked on your suit. No response. The energy signature inside flickered weakly. Everyone's trying to break you out. Strong people, important people, warriors with weapons that could crack planets. He paused. I'm not going to do that. I don't have their strength or their credentials. I'm just a mechanic who keeps broken things working on a station that should have been scrapped 20 years ago. The flicker steadied slightly. Daniel took it as encouragement. I understand why you sealed yourself in. Not because you're trapped by the lock, but because you don't know who to trust anymore. Your protectors couldn't protect you. Your allies couldn't identify your enemies. So you protected yourself, and now everyone's trying to force their way in to save you, proving exactly why you were right to hide. The sphere's surface rippled, like water disturbed by a stone. Here's what I'm thinking, Daniel continued. You're not a princess who needs rescuing. You're someone who needs a reason to come out. So I'm not going to try to break the lock. I'm going to show you something you can't see from in there. He pulled out his scanner and projected a hologram, the station systems, layer upon layer of interconnected failures and improvised fixes. This is what I do every day. I keep a dying station alive, not with force or expensive equipment, but by understanding how things connect, where the weak points are, how to redistribute stress. The hologram shifted, showing the complex network of relationships between systems. Your lock isn't a lock, it's a question. Every time someone tries to force it open, you're asking, will you respect my choice or override it? And they fail because they choose override. The sphere's pulse quickened. I'm not going to override you, Orla, but I want to show you what you're missing. He changed the hologram to show the plaza, where diplomatic delegations from a dozen worlds had gathered, not warriors but civilians, artists, scientists, children holding signs written in Thalmorian glyphs. They came when they heard you were in danger, not to fight but to wait, to hope. You've been negotiating the Treaty of Three Suns for 2 years. If you ratify it, it'll end wars that have burned for generations. That's why someone wants you dead, not because you're weak but because you're succeeding. The sphere began to crack, not violently but deliberately, fissures spreading like growing vines. I can't promise you'll be safe out here, Daniel said quietly. I can't even promise I can keep this station running another week, but I can promise that if you come out, I'll respect whatever choice you make next. Stay, leave, hide again, whatever you need. The sphere shattered into fragments of light that dissolved like morning mist. In its place, Orla's energy form hovered, a swirling constellation of consciousness that pulsed with colors Daniel had no names for. She flickered, unstable without her containment suit. Daniel jumped up, racing to the storage locker where they'd prepared a new suit, simpler than her original, more functional than beautiful. He activated it and held it steady as Orla's essence flowed inside. The suit sealed, and for the first time in days, her form stabilized. Her voice resonated through his implant, and this time it carried something that might have been a laugh. Every warrior tried force, only a mechanic tried listening. I'm good at listening to broken things, Daniel said. Helps me figure out how to fix them. I'm not broken. I know, but the situation was. He gestured to the bay doors. So what now? Orla's suit shifted, its surfaces rippling with thought. Now I sign the treaty. Then I find out who tried to kill me. Then, she paused, and her energy form brightened. Then I hire a new chief of security, someone who understands that protection isn't the same as control. Daniel blinked. I'm a mechanic. You're someone who solves problems without breaking things further. That's rarer than you think. She moved toward the door, then stopped. Will you accept? Daniel looked at his grease-stained hands, at the simple tools hanging from his belt, at the diagnostic scanner he'd built from scraps. He thought about warriors with their weapons and warriors with their pride, and how neither had understood that sometimes the strongest solution was the gentlest one. Yeah, he said, I'll accept. The bay doors opened to reveal the crowd of warriors, their weapons ready, their faces shocked to see Orla walking out on her own. She passed them without a word, with Daniel at her side, and together they headed toward the plaza where history was waiting to be written. Behind them, Commander Thex's laughter boomed through the bay. A mechanic. Of course it was a mechanic. Knight Captain Voss could only shake her head in disbelief. Outside, the three suns of Thulmora shone through the viewport, painting everything in shades of possibility. Daniel had kept the station running for another day. Now he had a princess to protect, not with force but with understanding. He figured the principles were roughly the same.